Hello, Zoltan here from Adagio Hands, releasing stuck bodies. If you have a burning sensation or an intense pain near or even over a joint, and it's a sensation that gets worse when you use that joint, when you use the associated muscles, and perhaps eases off after rest, but it's not entirely predictable, then chances are that you have an inflammation of the tendon, tendonitis. And this can happen. The most common areas I've noticed it in the wrists, for example, with people on computers, but also my musician clients, in the shoulders, in the hips, particularly under the bum, actually, upper hamstring. So people who jump a lot, runners, all around the knee, the outside of the knee, the inside of the knee, the base of the kneecap, and even the ankle, the very large Achilles tendon. All of those tendons can get inflamed and cause us problems. So in this video, we're looking at the likely causes and the solutions, and I'll say a few words about lifestyle issues as well. So what are the causes? Well, essentially it's aggravation. The main cause of tendonitis is aggravation, commonly known as rubbing. If your tendon is rubbing because of repetitive movement, time and time again, repeating the same movement, or it may be a movement that's misaligned, so it's not quite tracking over the joint as it should. It could be overloading as well. So if you're loading more than that joint really is strong enough to take, then the tendon will start to rub over that joint. It's not being supported, there's no space, and again, that will aggravate the tendon. Of course, from overloading, you can have injury, and injury itself, so the strain, often in the muscle, can extend to the tendon, and then that can cause inflammation. Now, paradoxically as well, you can also aggravate that inflammation through lack of motion. So the paradox here is we're saying that repetitive motion may cause the tendonitis, but also if there's lack of motion, then there won't be so much circulation, there won't be so much exchange of nutrients, and any inflammation will struggle to be dissipated and to heal. And associated with that, of course, you need fluids in your body for healing. So dehydration, so lack of fluids in your body can also lead to inflammation in all parts of the body, including the tendons. So what can we do when we have tendonitis, when we have that burning sensation, we have that pain? Well, the first thing, as you might expect, is rest. So don't use that joint, don't use those muscles in exactly the same way as you have been that causes pain. Now, that doesn't mean don't move at all. It just means don't load as much, don't use in the same way. Try to create space. So if it is misaligned, try to use the area in an aligned way so that things are tracking properly. At the same time, and this is the beauty of these paradoxes, at the same time as you're using things in an aligned way, you also want to vary patterns so you're not getting that repetitive movement over and over and over again. By the way, if I think back to my younger days training, when I was playing the church organ, I was told to have everything nicely aligned and the fingers like pistons. But then a little later on, I had a piano teacher who said, you want to constantly have a motion in your arms, a motion in your hands. So two very different philosophies. And the idea of motion is that you're constantly changing the fibers that are being used, and therefore the other fibers can have some rest. And similarly with the tendons, the angle of the tendons keeps varying, so you're not abrading the same parts of the tendon if there is a bit of rubbing over and over and over again. So rest, creating space and alignment, having some variation in the movement, and importantly then also strengthening the synergistic, so the ancillary muscles around the joint, so that you're getting additional support. So you're not just focusing on one angle of pull, you're also developing muscles all around that area, and that will offload some of that direct pull on the tendon. And then, as we've already discussed, hydration, lotion. So make sure that you're hydrating, that you're drinking plenty of water and electrolytes if you do have an inflamed tendon, because that will help to push through fluids through bring new nutrients to the area and support the healing process. I'd just like to say a word on exercises. So strengthening, if you are in pain, you don't want to do pulling heavy weights. That will be overloading again. But what you can do is exercises like isometrics, where you're not actually moving the muscle at all. You're resisting a static load. So for example, if I had inflammation in my wrist tendon, possibly the way I would start is place my hand there to promote a resistance and press into my hand like that. So I'm pressing with this hand into this hand, holding it for 10 seconds and then releasing. And then again, holding it for 10 seconds and releasing. Maybe doing that 10 times. That on its own is not enough, but it's one of the first steps, isometric exercises, where you're building strength without actually moving the whole joint and taking it through a painful range of motion. So start with isometrics, whatever the joint is. That's very often a safe bet. Now, as well as those exercises and direct activities you can do, there is always the risk that tendonitis can become chronic and can become a long-term issue. And to minimize the impact of that, there are some lifestyle considerations to take into account. So you want to de-stress. I have another video up somewhere about how stress itself can cause and aggravate inflammation. You want to have proper night's sleep, or whatever your sleep pattern. Make sure your body has time to recover, to heal, to maintain itself. Even with your nutrition, make sure that you're not eating inflammatory food. And there are some foods that are known, and spices that are known to be anti-inflammatory. I think turmeric is often cited as one. And keep moving, because as you're moving, you get nutrients, you have fluids flowing through your body, bringing those to your injured or inflamed parts. So as I say, there's all this paradox that you want to rest, you want to keep moving, you want to not load too much, but you still want to exercise. So it's a fine line, navigating that line. And to some extent, you will know when you're doing something that's good for your body, and you will know when it's aggravating the issue and it starts to get painful afterwards. Finally, if you do find that things aren't getting better, I would say generally try exercises and try all your good practices for a week. And if after a week you've had no improvement whatsoever, then it's worth going to see a specialist like a manual therapist. And in my case, chances are if I was dealing with tendonitis, I would employ some myofascial release. So releasing the connective tissues around the tendons, allowing them to breathe, to have more space, allowing nutrients to come in. So that idea of space, creating space around the injury, around the inflammation, giving it the space to heal, and separating the connective tissue from the tendon so that there's nice space in between the two. On timescales, generally, if you are doing things regularly in a disciplined way and perhaps getting some rehabilitation as well, then I'd expect tendonitis to be resolved after 6 weeks. However, if you don't see to it in good time and you don't do exercises regularly and you're not living the lifestyle that you need to be, then unfortunately it can just persist for months, years on end, and it becomes chronic and just becomes more and more difficult to shift. But have hope. With the points I've suggested, you should be well on your way to shifting an inflamed tendon. I hope you found that helpful. Thank you for listening. I look forward to seeing you in another video. Bye for now.